Our speakers for today's webinar, The Power of SSL Certificates in Your Domain Management Strategy, are MarkMonitor's Portfolio Marketing Director, Alison Simpson, and Channel Marketing Manager, Global Programs for DigiCert, Ryan White. Alison has more than 13 years experience in the domain industry. She has managed all aspects of corporate domain management, including domain strategy, development, and implementation. Alison started her career in the domain industry with MarkMonitor as a client services manager responsible for managing large, complex domain portfolios for global brands. Alison is currently responsible for the overall go-to-market message for MarkMonitor's domain business and continues to work face-to-face with many MarkMonitor clients in providing industry insight and domain protection strategies. Ryan looks after the global programs for DigiCert's website security channel marketing group. He has over 15 years of experience in security-related fields in corporate domain management, including ICANN's new GTLD program. Ryan has a passion for education and enablement of website security offerings, focusing on best practice website owners can leverage to improve their site security footprint. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Alison to get us started.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm very excited to have Ryan White from DigiCert co-presenting with me today about this important topic. But before we get started, just to remind everyone to please use the Q&A feature for any questions you may have, and we'll be sure to leave enough time at the end to address your questions. So today we're going to be walking through what an SSL certificate is, why it's important and the reasons to use them, the benefits of using MarkMonitor when managing your certs, and then we'll leave you with some best practices and some next steps. And of course, we'll close it out with some Q&A. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ryan to get us started. So take it away, Ryan.
Great, thank you so much, Alison. It's a real pleasure to be here today, talking to you all. So as we mentioned, pretty packed agenda that we have today. So we'll go through some of this stuff a little quickly, but we will make sure that there is plenty of time for questions at the end. First and foremost, let's start with the acquisition news. So on October 31st of last year, so the tail end of last year, DigiCert did complete the acquisition of the website security business for Symantec. This included the entire SSL or TLS business, all the PKI and related services like code signing and other ancillary services that were a part of website security. And this does make DigiCert now the largest certificate authority, or CA, as I'll refer to them throughout the content today, in the world, the largest in volume and in all other categories that you'd be concerned about. Very strong focus historically from DigiCert on the enterprise. This is really where our wheelhouse has been for a very long time, and mirroring that with Symantec's good business practices for the enterprise as well, I think situates us very, very nicely as that CA of choice for enterprises large and small. All of our certificates are now issued off the DigiCert hierarchy as of December 1st of last year. There was a big migration effort to move everything over to that hierarchy. Other than that, not a lot of changes should have happened. There was some reissuance work that if you were impacted, you would have been communicated to regarding that. So there is some activity going around that. Not really here to talk about that too much in detail today, but I do want to add one reminder, which is if you are a part of that group and you've gotten your new certificates, it's very, very important that the new certificates are installed. That's a critical component to the whole process, and just making sure that the new one's in place will go a long way for you in making sure that you're avoiding any issues that come with that. But other than that, very excited about the acquisition. It's a great merging of two companies very focused on thought leadership and progressing the security industry in general as a certificate authority, and bringing together a lot of great talent, a lot of good teams that really help to support the business. So it's a very, very good thing, and a lot of exciting things to come in the calendar year ahead. So now let's talk about what we're here for, which is the role of SSL and how this plays into your domain portfolio strategy. Some of this stuff may be a little bit remedial in nature, so that's fine. We have a lot of different people on the line today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on an overview of what SSL is and does. and then a good focus on other use cases for SSL that you might not be thinking about today. So what does SSL do? It serves to do two key things for your website. One, encrypting the data that's in motion. So when your clients, the end users, are coming to your websites and interacting, they need to know that any information they're submitting is going to be handled safely and securely, and therefore is encrypted in transit, so that a third party doesn't intercept that and use it for ill intent. It also serves to validate your site or your business's identity, meaning that a third party has come in and said, yes, this is the organization that you're intending to talk to. They're a legitimate entity. You should trust them and do business with them. Having SSL certificates on websites is a standard practice. We typically use them on our logins or payment pages and things like that. We'll get into a bunch of use cases and again, talk about other use cases that you might not think of every day. SSL serves, so besides the encryption and authentication aspect, it's designed to give users assurance and extra comfort that their information is going to be safe, that they're going to be, it's going to all be transmitted safely and securely. And it helps to inspire that trust and confidence that end users might need to submit that information, whether it's just the login details or banking or credit card or national identifier, that type of information, all very sensitive, all very personal, and needs to be, the end users need to be assured that that information is being handled securely and being transmitted to a legitimate and safe place. The benefit of that for site owners is hopefully increasing site stickiness, getting more people to come back to your website or just stay on your website when they're there in the first place. You've done a lot of work to get them there, keep them there. Get them to transact and experience a business uplift from the implementation of certs on your website, and make them feel safe and comfortable transacting. And it also provides these additional trust indicators. So we're all familiar with HTTPS and the padlock being in the browser. And then it also gives you access to things like trust marks, seals, things like that, the green bar in certain certificate environments. That type of stuff is all what SSL is serving to provide and create for the end user end-to-end experience. There are a lot of variations of certs. So we have 3 types of validation that takes place: domain validation, organization validation, and then EV or extended validation. And we'll take a little bit of time to talk about each of these. Domain validation is simply that. It's verifying ownership and control of a domain name. You are the one that owns this particular domain name, but it doesn't do a lot to say who's behind that domain name. So there's no real business authentication going into that. It does provide the encryption. It gives you that padlock in browsers. And because it's just verifying the control and ownership of that domain, it really does take just a couple of minutes in most cases to issue those certificates. So very quick, very easy. It's your very, very basic level of encryption and security as far as SSL goes. Organization validation takes that a little bit further, it takes that a step further. So we have all the benefits and the authentication work that goes into the domain or DV validated certificates, but it also provides proof of ownership of that domain and verifies the organization that actually owns and controls that particular website. This is the second component that I was talking about. So encryption is a great component of SSL. There's also the authentication aspect. And OV is the first tier of that provides some type of identifier saying, yes, this is a legitimate organization. We've confirmed that with some other third party, whether it's D&B or some other database, to say, yes, this is a real organization. We've called a contact at that organization through a listed number that we found that says, yes, this is actually a legitimate organization. You should trust them. This is really the crux of what SSL was intending to do when it was first brought to market in the 90s, which is providing that encryption, but also that validation, knowing that you're talking to the right person. Because of the extra work involved, these ones take about 1 or 2 days. Sometimes we can get these issued in a matter of hours as well. So there's some different automation aspects that help speed that up. But our normal SLA for that, just to kind of give a ballpark picture in our minds, is about 1 to 2 days. But we typically strive for that, more rapid issuance of those as well. And then we have extended validation. So historically, certificate authorities or CAs have been left to their own devices for how they authenticate and issue certificates. And there's domain validation certificates, there's OV certificates, now there's EV certificates. And the difference here, it takes a lot of the practices of OV certificates and then adds a number of authentication steps to that. This is an industry standardized process. We all have to follow the same rules as a CA. This is the first time that's been done in the industry, saying here are the guidelines and here are the rules for issuing certificates. And with these certificates, you get additional trust indicators on your website, which includes the green address bar in most of the popular browsers, as well as the name of your organization appearing in the Chrome of the browser. And that's all areas that can't be modified by the site owner. So it's all browser controlled. This is all regulated, and we pass audits every year for making sure that we're playing by the rules, just as every other CA would do as well. So 3 levels of authentication, different use cases for each. One of the great benefits of working with MarkMonitor is that they can offer a brand and a flavored certificate that's going to meet whatever needs you have. Let's add a little bit of an analogy to this to help visualize in your mind the different levels of authentication. And simply put, you can look at DigiCert as about as much as getting a library card. You say, yep, I'm this person, here, take my picture, give me a card, and I'll come in and do whatever devious acts I can do by getting these books at the library. Or using your computers, whatever they're doing there. Very, very basic, very easy, not a lot of controls go into domain validated certificates. You can look at OV. There's a little bit more of a rigorous authentication protocol. It's leveraging, it's kind of on par with the driver's license. There's a little bit more work involved in making sure you are who you are, a little bit more of an authentic type of experience. And I like to equate the OV type certificates with that being kind of like a driver's license, whereas EV would be more like a passport. So additional controls, more regulations to get your passport versus, you know, at the state level, your driver's license. Just a lot more in I think that this helps to visualize the difference in the levels of authentication to help put that into something a little bit more tangible that we can sink our teeth into that we're used to. So think of the passport being the EV, the driver's license being your OV, and DV being something simple like a library card. And on the bottom there, you can see the brands that offer those various types of certificates that you can get today. Here's another chart, which I think is pretty important. I won't go through everything, but you'll get this in your takeaways and leverage through the recording. Helps to identify various use cases for the types of certificates. So one thing I touched on was MarkMonitor being able to provide the right certificate for the right application. Sometimes you're going to have a blog. Sometimes you're going to have server-to-server communications, and all you really need for that is a DV certificate. You just need encryption. There's going to be other situations where the information gathered is a little bit more personal in nature, and you might need either an OV or an EV certificate. This is things like logins, banking sites, places where the types of transactions are a little bit more sensitive in nature, therefore a little bit more important to have the right type of certificate in place. Each of these certificates come with an enhanced warranty based on the level of authentication that's going into those certificates, all these different value adds that come across with the different features that come from each of these different certificate types. So I think that, again, one of the things that I really want to hammer home is just picking the right type of certificate for the right type of project. And if it's something, again, it's not business critical, you can get by and save yourself a little bit of money by buying the right certificate for the right project, but making sure that on those mission critical types of websites, your public facing sites, the places where the magic happens and they're transacting, you want the most visual cues that you can have on there, and you want to give that sense of confidence to the end users. As far as brands go, a number of brands are offered through your relationships with MarkMonitor, and these also play into that strategy for how you're using the certificates. Symantec has historically been the brand that everybody recognizes and trusts, and it's all about that circle check mark. This is our premium product line. It's not only about the brand recognition, but there are just additional features, product features, things like that that are built into the product that help to warrant needing those in certain situations. And that can be a plethora of different uses there. SOT is kind of our mid-market, very well-recognized global brand. It's a better than basic type of SSL strategy that's used with SOT. Very, very large focus on the education and public sectors. Those places have taken up SOT in a very big way, as well as our open source and our international friends. And again, these are good for various types of use cases. And then your basic SSL is your GeoTrust brand. This is our primary driver for our domain validated certificates. Again, maybe you're less mission critical. All of these come with a different price point and a different use case, which again, you can refer back to the slideware here to help you decide which certificates to use in which places. And then the last slide on this is another way of recommending when to use standard certificates versus maybe looking at EV certificates and taking it up to that passport type of level. If it's server-to-server communication, your basic DV or OV certificates are going to be fine. Don't really need EV in that scenario. And the reason being, you're not publicly facing with that, and you don't need those additional visual cues. EV is really, really critical for our publicly facing websites, where users are definitely going to make a decision if they're interacting and transacting with your sites. So anything internal, you can get by with your normal non-EV type of SSL, but anything that's collecting that private info that you want to make sure that your users are having the most exposure to visual cues, to that sense of security and privacy with the website, that's the place to use the cream of the crop, your EV type of certificates that help out with additional increases in uplift and in transactional type of activity on your website. Really going to go a long way to making sure you have that right certificate in place. And again, that's where MarkMonitor really shines, is by being able to help you get that right certificate at the right time for the right application. Want to make sure that that point really gets across today, because it's a very important value add that MarkMonitor brings to the table. So let's talk a little bit more about why using HTTPS is important. And I'll start with something along the lines of, historically, this has been all about encryption. I'm collecting information. I need to make sure that's safe. My user wants to see a padlock. I need to make sure that these login pages are secured. I need to make sure that my payment pages are secured, and leaving it alone at that point. That's good enough. Things are changing in the industry. Browsers are changing, search is changing. There's a lot of things that have been changing over the years that really make SSL more of a focal point for site owners and something to really be considering. Chrome, one of the first browsers in recent iterations of their browser dating back to the end of 2016, announcing that they're wanting to up the focus of HTTPS on websites, and pages that are supposed to have HTTPS that don't, login pages, things like that, are going to have some kind of an error, not an error, but a warning message. And you can see that warning up there with the X through the padlock, saying this is a site that's been identified as should be secure, but doesn't have an SSL certificate in place. And that's important to have. Any pages that are not HTTPS secure, this is another screenshot, but you want to make sure that's there so you're not seeing that X on your website. There's also warnings in Mozilla. Anytime the password is requested and it's not secured with HTTPS, that could be because of framing on the website. It could be for any other reasons. There's just no cert on that particular website. You're going to get that warning as well. And so browsers have taken it upon themselves to say, we want to see site owners doing things a little bit differently with their SSL usage on their websites. And how do we do that? Well, we'll start educating and informing users when they're in a spot that should be secured that isn't. And so the browsers are taking action on this. We've seen a lot of this with the development of the CA browser forum, where the CAs have been working with browsers, and there's this big consolidated effort between all those different parties to progress things online. And we're seeing a lot of new ballots come out of that, which lead to changes in how things are being developed and happening online. And it's working. So we'll get updated data on this sometime this year, I'm sure, but looking at the difference between 2016 and 2017, with the implementation of some of these changes at the browser level, we're seeing sites reacting and adopting more broad uses of SSL. For instance, in January of 2016, about 2 years ago, 39% of the top 100 websites weren't even were supporting SSL. So 61% didn't even support HTTPS on their websites, and only 24%, so about a quarter of them, were defaulting to HTTPS. So they weren't, so the almost half weren't using it at all, and about a quarter of them were defaulting to HTTPS. With some of these initiatives from the browser, we've seen that activity really spike over the course of about a year and a half, where now, as of last May, 60% of the top 100 sites were supporting HTTPS, meaning they were using it on their website. So a good increase of about 50% there. And then the number of sites that are defaulting, so forcing that SSL session on the website when the user first gets there, doubled up to 56% of those sites. I'm sure the numbers are higher. I haven't seen any more recent data on this, but this is a very compelling argument to show that the industry is moving towards securing more websites. And I think that's very important for us to consider. It's not just our login pages anymore. As we can see by those sites defaulting to it, they're forcing that SSL session when the users come to the site. And I think that historically there's been some concerns about latency issues with SSL, slowing down page load speeds or whatever it might be. We're not really seeing that anymore in today's day of higher speed connections and what have you. And I think that it goes a long way to giving us the confidence to say, yes, we can make sure that this environment that we're having our customers come to is secured from end to end, start to finish, soup to nuts, however you want to call it. That secure experience is happening all along the way. There's also some other features that browsers have been adopting, and they're only available in HTTPS types of environments. So geolocation, if you're gonna be Googling something and you want your location to show up, that's only gonna happen when SSL is in place. Things like getting full screen media, rich media like embedding videos and media extensions, camera mic access, things like that, all has to be handled through secure channels, or else the browsers just simply aren't going to allow that. And that includes browsers, that includes apps, that includes all over the place. So there's a lot of other use cases. And again, what I want to get across here is that the browsers, the manufacturers, the others that are involved in this ecosystem are jumping on board and saying, hey, we really need to change our approach to security, and we're only going to have these other features and these key enhancements available when a proper security profile is met. So definitely something that you're going to want to consider. And the big one that I think resonates so well is search. I'm in marketing. We as marketers spend countless dollars every year trying to optimize our search through a lot of different things, whether it's AdWord buying or keyword spending, whatever it might be. We're very interested in making sure that our search is optimized as well as it can. Popular search engines like Google have been very shielded and guarded with what they'll say about their search algorithms and how those algorithms are determined and defined. One thing that they did mention in a public blog was that they are factoring in, as of, this is also late 2016, but really stepped up last year, SSL, the presence of an SSL certificate is impacting in a positive way search results. So you can have all the keyword density in the world, you can have the best AdWord buys for your paid search, but your organic search, in linking, all those other things that help with your optimization of the search are going to be, they're all great and they're all best practices that you should still be following, but having an SSL certificate helps to raise that search ranking as well by as much as 5% versus just using HTTP. So this was a very big moment for SSL certificates in the sense that there's this tangible evidence now about search being impacted, which is really every marketer's dream, is how to get search, dialed in and working out well. And the browsers, the search engines, all these other places that haven't been, in the CA mix very often are taking security to a whole nother level. And I think a lot of that's because people are concerned. There's a learning curve online, and people need to be assured and understand that their information is being handled safely and securely. And the end customers aren't always going to do the best job. So the industry is taking it on and helping to progress things forward as well. I think this is a great advancement for us as marketers. And one thing that SSL certainly helps to combat is phishing. Phishing is continuing to rise on a quarter by quarter, on a regular basis. We're seeing more and more phishing sites coming up, but the real concern and alarm here is that they're targeting sectors they haven't historically targeted. So usually it's the e-commerce, it's the banking, it's the financial services places that have really had a problem with phishing. But I bet everybody on the line here has had some exposure to phishing in some way or another. And it's because these phishers, this is their business, this is how they make money, and they need to adapt as well. They're targeting other places where people aren't normally concerned about the privacy of their information. But what happens when they get one of your social media credentials? They can post some things or whatever, fine. But if those credentials are shared with your bank logins and other types of credentials, they can then use those attacks for other areas as well. So they're very devious, they're very good at what they do, they're very seasonal, and they're very adaptive, these phishers, in their attacks and the sophistication of those attacks. And they're targeting different industries. So nobody's really immune to this. Other industries, some industries are more impacted than others, of course, but nobody's immune, and it does impact everybody. And the last thought I'll leave you with that, I get a lot of people that say, phishing's not a problem for me, so my site isn't targeted by that. And that's fine, and that could be very fair. There are a lot of brands, there's a lot of websites that really just aren't a target for phishers, and they might never be. But the problem that you still need to consider is that it's a problem for other websites and other places where your customers are going, and therefore it still becomes a problem for you, because a lack of confidence and a lack of trust online is going to lead to a lower propensity for the end users to want to interact with your website. So very important to have the right security profile in place. Again, that's where the right type of certificate, whether it's OV, EV, or DV, comes into play with your strategy for your particular website. Another thought I'll give you is on new GTLDs. This is something, as mentioned in my bio, I have some experience with as well. And securing either domains that you're registering within the new GTLDs, or protecting your investment with the new GTLD that you own and operate as well. Think about these other use cases: search, geolocation, things like that. You've invested a lot in your new GTLD, or in your strategy to register domain names within the other various GTLDs. And it's important to protect that investment and make sure you're doing the best that you can. So at a minimum, increase your SEO value, future-proof for any other industry trends that we see with the browsers, and create that nice, secure, confident end user experience. And your customers are going to reward you by buying more and doing more with your website. And if you have your own new GTLD, well, there's even more reason to protect that investment and make sure that you're doing the right things. Again, for the same reasons: browser compliance, that secure experience, and then maintaining and increasing your SEO value as far as an SSL certificate can help with that. So that would bring us to our first poll question. Roland, I'd ask that you push this out. Thank you. The question is, how does your organization currently manage your SSL certificates? And you can choose between spreadsheets, a management console, MarkMonitor, I don't know, or other. And while you're thinking about that, I'll add some color to the question, I guess. We talk to partners, customers, people all large and small, and we see all different types of management. And one of the ones that stands out is, enterprises large and small will use any means they have to make sure they're managing these certificates. And a lot of times that's done through a spreadsheet. And this really isn't a fail-safe way of managing things. It leaves open a lot of gaps, such as certificates that may not be under your purview, other teams are using. You're not benefiting from all the economies of scale that can come from a consolidated management console. You're not you're not tracking every certificate that's in your environment, and that could lead to certificates expiring or being renewed when they're not really even needed. So it'd be interesting to see what the rest of us have. I don't know if we can push those results out and speak a little bit to that. But our customers, the people that we deal with, run the whole gambit of how they manage their certificates.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. And I think that Roland was going to launch the results, but we may be having a little bit of technical. Oh, here we go. Perfect.
Good. So just at a quick glance, we're not using spreadsheets. That's great. A lot of you guys are using MarkMonitor. That's also awesome. The unknowns, about a third of you guys aren't sure how these are being managed. I'm assuming that's because it's not under your purview, but we should really get that dialed in and figured out as well. And I'd be interested in just carrying down the road what the others might be. Allison, I don't know if you have any comments on that as well, but I'd also like to pass it over to you because I know that you want to talk a little bit more about how MarkMonitor helps.
Yes, thank you. Now, it is highly recommended that you manage your certs with some type of online console because tracking on spreadsheets can be an administrative nightmare and introduces potential flaws and risks, like you mentioned earlier, the tracking of the wrong expiration dates. So we do understand that administrative burden. So we have spent a lot of time and resources putting technology into our domain management platform that helps ease the ordering and management process. And when you use MarkMonitor for your SSL certificate management, you're managing your certs along with your domains and your DNS. So you have the one central location, you have your central billing, you get the benefits of using our secure platform that is protected with two-factor authentication and other advanced security options. And then you also get the benefits of your dedicated client services manager that can help you every step of the way. So I think that's probably the best benefit. So within the MarkMonitor domain management console, you're able to track all your domains, your DNS, and your SSL certificates, and essentially manage your entire domain lifecycle. Within the domain dashboard, you get full transparency into expiring domains and SSL certificates. So I've kind of highlighted that SSL certificate area. We highlight those certs that are expiring the next 30, 60, 90 days. And this information is also provided in a monthly email along with other important account information. So you never lose sight of an expiring cert. We have simplified the ordering and workflow process. You now have two options when ordering SSL certificates through MarkMonitor. You can either select the appropriate cert from a drop-down menu, or you can select Help Me Choose a Cert, and you will be taken to our SSL Certificate wizard. The nice thing about using MarkMonitor for SSL cert management is you're not limited to the one type of cert or the one brand of cert. You get to choose from multiple brands and choose the best option based on your website need. So the MarkMonitor SSL Certificate Wizard, it really does simplify the ordering process by walking users through a series of questions to identify the most appropriate cert to meet their website needs. So the list of cert options changes based on your answers. So the first question we ask is, will your site face customers or visitors? If you answer no, it will be used for internal users such as company employees only. Then the list to the right reduces to a more entry-level type of cert. If it's a customer-facing cert that you're after, you'll be asked additional questions like, how will users enter data on the website? From there, the series of questions will help reduce the list even further until you are left with the most appropriate options for your website. So whether you need an entry-level cert for an internal application or an extended validated cert for a critical website or critical customer-facing website, when you use this wizard, you will have peace of mind knowing that you've selected the best cert for your business need. So let's go over a few best practices that can set you up for success. First, use the management solution that allows you to order quickly and securely. Best case scenario is to manage your certs along with your domains in a single secure online environment. This enables a visibility and allows you to better track expiration dates. And while we know changes are coming for Whois, it's still best practice to ensure consistency between the domain ownership and the organization listed within the CSR. And then finally, never give out that private key. So some next steps that you can walk away with and implement today. Analyze your domain portfolio to see what additional names might need to be secured with an SSL certificate. Leverage the multiple brands for cost savings. Prioritize based on website value to your business. And consider adding SSL at the time of domain registration. That way, your expiration dates will be synced. and you'll be able to track who the requester is when it comes time for renewal and you need to get a new CSR. And as always, if you would like more information, please reach out to your client services managers. They're great resources, and they are always willing to share their expertise with you. All right, so with that, I would like to go ahead and open it up. Roland? Excellent.
Yes, thank you, Allison and Ryan. That was great. We did have a couple of questions that were asked during the presentation. The first one is, what's the value of an EV certificate?
I'll take that one, Allison. So there's a lot. So one of the main drivers is that additional visual cue that I was talking about, which is the green address bar. Now, each browser does things a little bit differently, but they all have some instance of that green bar being in the browser. It's up to the browser, again, how they display that. They'll have the organization name in just about every instance where that name of the organization is showing up in the Chrome of the browser as well. And that's really designed to provide those additional visual cues. Think of a traffic light. When you pull up to a traffic light, when it turns green, you go. You feel safe. You know it's time to go. And green's always, been a color that's associated with good and in anything, not just traffic lights, but a lot of things in life. And so it's important to have that additional visual cue on the website just to give the users as much confidence and as much encouragement as you can to proceed with the transaction on that website. So it's really a visual cue play there. Not much else is going into the technology. It's the same as an OV certificate technology-wise, but those additional visual cues are designed to inspire more transactions and ultimately make you more money online. Great question.
Excellent. So the next question is, do you anticipate more changes in browsers will bring more focus on security?
Yep, I'll take that one again. I do, and the reason I do is because I think that this is the first time we've really seen the browsers getting involved in a lot of the policy decision making. They're helping proposing ballots. They're pushing for more controls and more security online, and I think that's a very important aspect for advancing things with security online. Just in the last few years, we've seen some of the examples that I showed you today. My guess is there are more to come, and why not? They're beefing up their security presence. They're looking at making security, they being the browsers, a forefront of people's thoughts instead of just an afterthought. And I think with that comes compelling arguments to adopt the technology, which will be driven, in my mind, again, this is all my opinion, driven by different features and enhancements that come to browsers that are only available in HTTPS.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And the next question we received was, will MarkMonitor be adding additional certs to the Cert offering?
Yes, and yes, we will be adding some DigiCerts to the offering. I don't have an exact timeline for that, but we've been focused on adding this integrated technology into the Cert wizard. So yes, we will be adding. I just don't have an exact timeline for that. And actually, I see another question too, Roland and Ryan. Would you maybe want to take this one? What extra information is needed for customers to use EV certs?
Yep, great question. So typically that relies on a lot of our OV practices. Again, this is a standards-based type of authentication protocol that the browsers and the CAs have gotten together to create. There are additional phone calls and additional authentication checks. So historically, what we've done for OV is used a third party to get a phone number to call whoever's requesting the certificate to make sure that they actually did request that certificate. And we don't just call somebody's cell phone, we call a number that we've gotten from a third party database for that. EV adds to those phone calls, it adds to some additional checks. There's probably something like dozens of checks that we're doing on the back end that are mostly transparent to you as a site owner, but we're checking to make sure that we're maintaining compliance with that EV standard. So it's really just going above and beyond the authentication phone calls that have been happening historically to get other things, whether it's you know, a site visit to make sure that the organization is where they say they are, or some other means of doing that. Making sure that the person requesting the certificate does actually have that authority, and it's in their job description to request that certificate to help, you know, eliminate any rogue employees getting certificates on that organization's behalf. And all of that's really designed to help out with making sure that the site is really who they say they are, and it's going through these additional checks and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
And then I saw another one come in about 3 examples of sites with visual cues. Are you okay with me naming off some sites that use EV, or Alison?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, PayPal uses EV from start to finish. That's a great example. I believe Bank of America is still doing it. A lot of your financial institutions, a lot of those sites you can go to today, and they're using EV from start to finish. My investment company, Charles Schwab, does it as well. So there's a lot of sites you can go out to. They're really all over the place now, where you can see those visual cues, and those cues will be HTTPS in the browser, the padlock, and the green bar being present in the Chrome of that browser as well.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have from our audience. So thank you again, Alison and Ryan. We appreciate you sharing your presentation with us today. I'd also like to thank everyone for tuning in for their participation. As a reminder, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a link to the webinar's presentation, slides, and a recording within the next couple of days. So you can be on the lookout for that email. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you again for tuning in, and everybody have a great day.